Did they have caller ID?
No.
I don't think they did.
No.
See, and that's why they can't
In
ever
85?
confirm.
Yeah.
They can't confirm this phone call to Jeremy from the house. So I suddenly wonder if maybe it. I mean, I don't want to sully on the dead, but maybe it really was her, and she called up her brothers, confessing what she had done and saying, "I don't know what to do. I just realized I killed them all."
I guess
Holy crap!
the only argument against that is that the relationship between the siblings did not seem to be particularly robust.
No.
It seems like
wasn't
she
real
would have
warm.
probably called her ex-husband before she would have called her brother.
Yeah, but he
Would
was
you
50
call
miles.
your ex-husband and
he
say,
was-
"Hey, I just killed our
I
children"?
think she had a better relationship with her ex-husband than she did her
It
brother.
sounds like it wasn't a totally bad relationship, but he was 50 miles away in London.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
it
don't
just.
know. That's not a bad point.
I'm just, these are things that I keep thinking about because there's so many weird things in this case. Well, you know, it could potentially fit.
Yeah. But then why would she have killed herself?
Guilt. It's usually why the person at the end does themselves in, is they can't stand what they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe she called Jeremy and Jeremy says, "Well, you killed them all," and she says, "Yes, I've killed them all. What am I going to do?" He says, "Well, usually what people do in these cases is they kill themselves."
No, I mean,
Okay, that's making him out to be probably
we
worse
probably
than he is.
should. We
Yeah, it's
should
not
probably
fair.
keep going a little bit because
Oh, yeah.
I know Joe and I talked about a theory we have.
Okay, anyway, to summarize what I think is wrong with the prosecution's theory, again, Neville was too badly injured to have spoken anyway, no blood in the kitchen phone. He was not, he had to have made that phone call if he made it before the shooting started.
Yeah,
Almost certainly.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all.
Yeah. So that's, so let's get back to the silencer for a second. They
Which
found
one?
the silencer. Yeah, the one that was on from the 22 that had the blood on it and inside it.
Well, but it's not the only silencer that was in the house.
No, I know, but that was the one that actually went with that 22 rifle.
Is that true? Because I know that there was several silencers and there were several guns, and that the guns got mixed up and relabeled in police custody at least once.
Mm-hmm. Again, great investigation, guys.
Which,
Yeah.
okay, makes me wonder if there wasn't more. And I don't remember. I don't remember seeing it specified what type. But I do remember seeing suspicions that they had mixed them up, and that the one that had the blood in it wasn't actually the one that the prosecution was saying originally had been used.
That's always possible, but the police wound up with a silencer in their possession that did have red paint on it. It did have blood on the outside and also inside. Because you know how silencers work, right?
Yeah.
They're like a tube with a bunch of baffles that have just a hole through the middle of them. And so apparently there was not a huge amount, but a little bit of backspatter. Or
Which makes
backsplatter.
sense at a short distance, right?
Short distance,
Yeah.
even contact wounds, you know. So the first 4 or 5 of these baffles had some blood on them. And they said it was the same blood type as Sheila's.
They said it was the same blood
Group. Yeah, I know. I assume that's British for blood type. I don't
No,
know.
it's not.
Okay.
Here's how this goes, because I actually read into this. So, in humans, evidently there are one of two blood groups, or at least in that family, there was one of two blood groups, AK1 and AK2-1.
I don't understand what those things are.
I don't know what I don't know what it means either. If I saw it in front of me, I could say the words, but they are different groups. And the thing is that the technology wasn't all that great. It wasn't as if they were sequencing the DNA.
Yeah.
AK1 is not only present in human blood, apparently, from the stuff I've read. I don't know if that's true, but what I've read is that, well, actually, I can't remember exactly what the AK1 stands for, but it's in the blood of other critters. Rabbits and
So like
dogs
rabbits.
and cats
Yeah,
included.
rabbits. Yeah.
So there is some issue in that we found blood on it bit.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like, and there was some, I'll talk about this in a little bit, now that we have DNA, of course I don't know if the silencer is still around, if they destroyed that too. I think it's still around, they did a little checking.
That was my understanding too.
My understanding is that they tracked down Sheila's actual bio mother. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So, because there was that blood from Sheila's blood group in that silencer, then the prosecution argued that she was shot with the silencer on the gun. and therefore she couldn't have done it herself. It had to have been murder because her arms, again, were not long enough to reach the trigger.
And I'll mention, I read somewhere online somebody saying, well, she was barefoot, so she could have pulled it with her toe. But please remember, the silencer was not on the gun when she pulled it with her toe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no way she could have shot herself, taken it off, put it in the cabinet, and then gone back to where she died.
At least not as pristine as she was.
No, one of the shots went
No, I know.
into
I'm
her
just
neck.
saying, but like additionally, actually that neck one apparently would have not immediately killed her. It was the one that went into her head. So
But it would have killed her.
It would have eventually,
Eventually she
but
would
if
have
she
bled out.
had shot herself in the neck, thought, oh, just kidding, this isn't going to work with the silencer on, for some reason took it off, went down to the gun cabinet, put it back in the gun cabinet, came back upstairs, shot herself again, that's not possible.
Yeah, there's
Just
no.
dispel that.
It just, it's, I mean, there's a competing theory out there, which is that she was going to try to shoot herself. She realized it wouldn't work, so even the first shot, she took the suppressor off. And I don't know how much of a neat freak Sheila was. She took the suppressor off, she put it away. I mean, you know, for all I know, the suppressor, she took it off in the kitchen and set it on the table. And then somebody came along, like the police, and they said, "Oh, what's this doing laying out?" And I'll just put it in the gun cabinet over there.
Because this is something
You
we
know,
haven't actually
because-
addressed yet, is the number of people who came through this crime scene.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
like about 50 some. You
It was
know?
a circus.
50
Oh, yeah.
people came through this crime scene before anybody. And there's even evidence to suggest that the bodies were moved
Yeah, there is.
before pictures were taken of them, that would absolutely corrupt any kind of body placement, anything of a suicide.
Oh yeah.
And there's pictures that are taken that show the gun having been moved and laying, I think it's leaned up against a wall near a window, and you can see it in another photo accidentally.
Yeah.
But then it's back with Sheila. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some things.
So that's
Yeah.
also worth mentioning as well. It's
Yeah.
totally
Absolute circus.
possible that, there was just a silencer rolling around and somebody thought, no, I'll just put this away.
Yeah, it's totally is.
Seems unlikely, but I guess I wouldn't be shocked to find out that happened.
No, me neither. The prosecution to sum up the prosecution's arguments, it was claimed that she had no knowledge of guns and no interest in guns. She lacked the strength to overcome her father, and there was no evidence in her clothes or body that she had moved around the crime scene or been involved in a struggle. But again, I don't find that dispositive myself because she had the rifle. So the rifle was empty. Her father was still up and about, but wounded. He was wounded, had 4 bullets in him. So, and she had a rifle that made a nice handy club. And so it wouldn't have been hard to bludgeon him until he was unconscious. And
It's also hard to
reload.
know if in a situation like this, one assumes that a person would fight back, but sometimes you read about these cases where a daughter's like just totally beaten on their dad, and their dad isn't fighting back because they don't want to hurt their daughter.
Yeah, could be.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's not likely in this situation. It's more likely he was just too injured to fight back, but
Too weak.
it's always possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's losing blood, and he's like got 4 bullet holes in him, and
Yeah.
So the trial ended with a conviction. October 28th, 1986. The jury found 10-2 that he was guilty. So if he had gotten one more not guilty vote from a juror, he would have been let go. But he was found guilty, sentenced to 5 life terms. And by the way, the judge in this case really, I think, moved the goalposts on him. You know what I'm talking about? It was originally supposed to be a unanimous verdict, but they were having trouble reaching a verdict. So the judge basically said, "Hey, you just need to get at least 9 out of 12. So I'm going to change the rules on you. So instead of having to be unanimous."
Well, he also said that they could convict solely on the testimony of the ex-girlfriend.
Those were his instructions, that you can convict solely under testimony, which I think
is a highly questionable movement.
Yeah, you know what? Well, I think the evidence against Jeremy Bamber is really kind of thin. Doesn't mean he didn't do it, but let's examine this. For example, there is absolutely no forensic evidence that links him to the crime scene. I mean, one of his fingerprints was found on the rifle, but he was handling the rifle just the night before, so that's not exactly damning evidence.
And
Sir,
he
are we
would have
doing-
handled it in the past.
Are we doing theories now, or?
I think we should.
Well, yeah, no, I just, I'm just saying that, I just wanted to sum it up by saying it's kind of remarkable that they got a conviction in this case, considering, I think, how thin their case really was. Okay, let's talk about the theories. So we got some possible perpetrators here.
And we've talked about some of this stuff.
Oh yeah, we have. Again, I wanted to talk about the 22 shell casings for a little bit. I don't know if they were fingerprinted or not. For all my looking, I was not able to find it. I know they picked them up, they cataloged them. How many were in this room, how many in that room, and yada yada. But I don't know if they fingerprinted them.
Yeah.
But if any of them had Sheila's fingerprints on them, a single one of them, then the case is solved, kids.
I agree.
Yeah. I have no idea if those things are still around. Probably not. And if none of them had Sheila's fingerprints on them,
Then it's a correct conviction.
yeah, then there you go. That explains it too. And it would have been nice to take a look at the note that was in the Bible, because it probably was not a suicide note, but it would have been nice to,
Yep.
it would have been good if they could have at least taken a picture of it before they lost it. But we also mentioned just briefly the phone logs. It turns out there are records of a phone call from Neville as well as Jeremy.
Yeah, we
Right.
talked
Yep.
about
We
that.
talked about that.
Yeah, okay. Sheila was on, I think this is pronounced haloperidol.
Yeah.
Haloperidol, I don't know, but it's an antipsychotic drug, and some of which was found in her system during the autopsy.
Wait, so we've moved into theories, and based on what we're talking about, we're talking
Sheila.
about
Oh, okay, Sheila. Yeah, we're
right?
talking about Sheila.
Sheila did it.
Sheila did it.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
I'm
I was
sorry.
I was
that's-
sitting here and I'm like, okay, so we're talking
Okay.
more about Sheila was the okay.
We all
so
have
this
the
is
script in
this is
front
the
of us.
justification that Sheila did it in the theories. God, continue on talking about this later.
Yeah, these are reasons to believe Sheila did it.
So she was on a drug.
Yeah, so she was on, I think it's haloperidol or something like that. It's an antipsychotic drug.
But she had been on her dosage just been reduced, right?
Yeah, I had
cut
heard
in
that they
half.
cut it in half. Yeah, so
And
that,
it was an injection she had to
it
get.
was like a monthly thing, and so I don't know how long ago she had gotten her monthly.
I think is
and
Weekly? Okay.
I do want to mention, while we're talking about the drugs that she was on and all of that stuff, I know the perception is that people with schizophrenia are violent, but realistically, clinically, that's not the case. In fact, people with schizophrenia are more often the victims of violent cases than perpetrators of violent cases. That's not to say that they can't go crazy sometimes.
There are some who do that.
And actually, usually that's linked to drug use. And Sheila was using some drugs.
She was also
She was
diagnosed
partying.
as bipolar. Mm-hmm. So she would have fits of mania, which
And so the whole thing with schizophrenia, right, is that very often you just disassociate from reality. You can't tell what's going on in your head and what's going on in reality. She thought she was the devil. But I want to make sure that
because her mother called her the devil child.
Right.
She
but I
thought,
do
she
think-
thought that her kids were the devil too.
Yeah, she kind of thought everyone was the devil for a while.
Thought her mother was the devil.
Yeah, but I do want to just mention that just because she's schizophrenic doesn't mean that she was violent
Yeah.
or capable of something like this.
Absolutely.
But it does
Right.
seem that her specific case, she might have been capable of something like this, and she might have actually
Maybe.
just kind of been guano crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. Let's see. Also, another reason I suspect Sheila could have done it is, again, I already mentioned this. Neville, when they had their struggle, if there was between the two of them, had already been shot 4 times. She had a rifle to use as a club.
She also had, like we talked about before, the relatively fresh blood.
Yeah, the neck
from
wounds.
her wounds.
Yeah, the wounds in her neck, and it does look from the pictures. There's some nice close-up pictures. I shouldn't say nice. It's
They're close up.
but they're close up.
They're clear.
And the blood appears to be still fresh and wet and not coagulated.
coagulated,
Yeah, it's nice and bright red. You know how dried blood.
Yeah,
turns into-
it's wet.
yeah.
And
yeah.
it's thin, too. That's
Yeah.
the other thing, right, is that, like, okay, if it was, like, thick, really gooey things of
Congealed.
blood. Well, even if it was just a lot of blood, you would assume, okay, maybe it hasn't congealed yet. There's a lot there, but it's pretty thin streams because it does appear that she was shot and then fell backwards. So it's not as though blood was rushing out of her. It was just trickles of blood, and it looks real fresh.
And
It
there's-
really does.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing that I will point out that I had noticed is that there are 2 bullet wounds, and they're pretty close together, but they're, I mean, it's what? One is under the jaw and one is in the neck. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
They're about 2 inches apart or so.
Yeah.
And when she fell backwards, you notice the blood runs in the same direction.
yeah.
In other words, the path of it is pretty uniform. I mean, they start to come together eventually just because of the contours of her neck.
But it would have been pretty quick, one after the other.
Right.
And there was that burn mark or something. They originally
Muzzle
thought
burn.
there was
Like a little powder burn.
but there was a little powder burn there.
Yeah.
So she definitely, it was quick and it was point blank.
Yeah, no, it's like they think the first one was maybe 3 inches away, and then the second one was a contact. Yeah, and I mean, again, 22 rifles aren't terribly noisy, but especially if you get it pressed up against your chin, it's not going to make much noise at all. So it could have even happened. It probably happened when they were outside the house, if it was Sheila. And also, the defense team got a blood sample they found Sheila's biomom, and they compared her DNA to the DNA in the blood of the silencer. This is according to the defense team, and they say the blood of the silencer wasn't Sheila's.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then the only real physical evidence the prosecution has, which is that the silencer had to have been on the gun because her blood was inside the silencer, and therefore she couldn't have committed suicide because she couldn't have reached the trigger. That whole theory is out the window.
Well, it's also probably worth mentioning that the burn marks that were on her body, right? They were consistent with the muzzle of the gun, not the
Same
silencer.
thing with Neville.
Same thing with Neville, that they were consistent with the muzzle of the gun, not the silencer.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks pretty clearly to the fact that the silencer was probably not on when the attack was carried out.
And, and this again comes back to my point of they're not very loud guns and people are a half a mile away. So over the course of, let's say, half an hour, 25 gunshots that are from a .22 rifle in a closed house probably aren't going to be heard, which is why the use of the suppressor is so just off kilter for me. They're far enough away. It doesn't have to have been on the gun during this entire film.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would make sense. I don't know, maybe shoot the kids first, and then.
So nobody else knows.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, this is of course saying it's planned out, but
yeah, I don't know.
I know you've got more here
Yeah.
for the fact that Sheila is responsible. Correct.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's. I think I've mentioned that the defense also found gun experts, as we talked about, and then lastly, if I talked about this earlier, if Jeremy Bamber shot his sister Sheila, how did he do it without a struggle?
Yeah, she had literally no signs of struggle on her, right? Not even bruises or anything.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't she have had a strong incentive to try to at least either fight back or try to get the hell out of the house?
Yeah.
And wouldn't he have had to go and grab her and drag her back? Wouldn't she have? They've made a lot about the fact that she had perfect fingernails, no broken fingernails. Well, wouldn't she have been like falling all over herself to unlock the door and get out of the house, and
One
she's
would
grabbing her,
think.
pulling her back in? And she's,
Well, yeah, and I guess that comes a little bit back to me for I don't know how strong the dosage of the medication she was on. I know it was cut in half, but I don't know.
Wow,
Some people are affected more by side effects than others. If she was
Well, and as we
heavily
said, this
sedated
drug was
and-
known to make people very sleepy.
Yeah, so if she was heavily sedated, if that was one of the side effects she was experiencing, it would make sense. But there's no mention of that being a side effect of hers. So.
yeah, no,
And it seems like that would be a strong
it didn't
thing
seem
to
like
suggest.
Yeah,
right?
there were people that had witnessed her over the past day or two at the farm and said that she didn't seem,
She seemed normal.
She didn't seem all drugged out or anything
Yeah.
like that. All right, so much for Sheila. So Sheila is a strong contender. I think she actually could be the guilty party here. So what do we got against him? What makes him look as good as a suspect? So
His girlfriend hates him.
the girlfriend testified against him and said that he said all kinds of stuff. Her roommates testified that he had said that he hated his family.
Again, though,
Again, that doesn't prove really much of anything.
24-year-old D-bag, gotta
This-
say
yeah.
stupid things.
Yeah, his extended family thinks that he did it. And in fact, those guys went to the police with their suspicions a long time before the girlfriend went to the police. And they said they thought Jeremy was a suspect, or he should be a suspect. It appears, he wasn't a great guy, but everybody thought he was insincere in his grief and that he was acting at the funerals. And then, of course, we talked about the big, huge grin in the car after the funeral.
It makes me think, in Bamber's defense, in Jeremy Bamber's defense, it almost makes me think of Gone Girl. There's that scene where some woman comes up and says, "Can I take my picture with you?" "Okay, sure," and just automatically smiles in the picture, and then goes, "Oh."